Hey Becky, how are you?
Yeah, really good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, really good. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. I've been waiting for a while to get you on. And it's a cool topic we're going to talk about today as well, because it's all stuff to do with influencers. And we haven't really touched influencers for some time. I think the last time I can think back is we had Kamal on the podcast, which he's an influencer himself, fitness influencer, and that was like a long time ago. That was like November time. So really excited to have you on the podcast, basically, because it's a topic that's very hot right now, but it's a topic we haven't covered for a while.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, it's something I always am happy to talk about, and it's obviously very close to my heart because I feel like my whole story, ever since I was like 12, has just stemmed from this
Mm,
influencer path and from both sides, from first-hand
yeah,
experience to starting an agency as
it's
well.
quite unique because your childhood, like you're in your sort of like mid 20s now, like your childhood was like basically you were an influencer before the word influencer was even a job, right? Like that's such a unique position to grow up in.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, ever since I was really young, my parents had always been very keen to just make sure that we were going to be in touch with like this future generation. They saw the internet and computers were coming out, and they didn't really know it too well themselves, but they're like, this is going to be super important, so we've got to make sure that our kids are really hot on it. So I always had access to like internet and computers ever since I was really young. I remember always just feeling, though, whenever I was consuming content online, I also felt like I wanted to give back to those communities and create as well. So
Mm,
when I was watching YouTube videos back in like 2006, 2007, when the platform first launched,
that's
I
crazy.
was, watching YouTube, and I always felt like I don't just want to watch it. I want to do it too, and I want to join in and give back to this community that I'm getting so much back from myself.
2006. That was literally like 2006 is so long ago. That must have been literally as YouTube launched.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah, there was actually another website before it. I think it was called Bolt.com, and that was like the YouTube before YouTube existed, and it is defunct now.
Crazy.
It doesn't exist anymore. But yeah, people were making YouTube videos before YouTube even existed over there. It was mad.
So how old were you at this stage where you were watching these sort of like very early stage YouTube videos? And there wasn't like that much content back then. So it was like, yeah. At what point, at what age were you when you started making these like making YouTube videos?
So I started my YouTube channel in 2007, and I was 12 years old. So I was very young. I
Wow.
think the terms of service say you've got to be 13. So hopefully they won't catch up to me and take away my account. But yeah, I was really young, and just really enjoying getting involved with the YouTube scene, even though I was probably a little bit too young to do that.
Yeah. So
I did it
what
anyway.
sort of videos were you doing?
I was just making like videos with my friends, as you do when you're a kid. Nobody's really watching your videos. Like, it's only a handful of views, probably from bots or something. But it's just kind of like the excitement of posting. I think it's probably quite similar to what a lot of young kids are experiencing with TikTok today. Is like, you don't really get any views, but you enjoy the
Mm,
process of creating videos.
yeah.
But my YouTube journey kind of started to take off after so this is very niche, but when I was really young, there was this community of girls on YouTube who would recreate the dances. Like, there was dance routines set to Japanese pop music and pop songs, so every music video would have like a dance routine set to it, and these girls would learn the dances and post them, and I was like, that looks like so much fun. How cool, I'm going to do the same. And so I did. My videos didn't really go anywhere for quite a while, and then all of a sudden one day I woke up, and you know how some websites you have email notifications on.
Yeah.
So if you get like a new follower, a new friend
Yeah,
request,
yeah, yeah.
anything, I had this on for my YouTube, and I woke up to like 2,000 emails
Oh
saying like,
my
this person subscribed
gosh.
to your account. And I was like, what the heck is going on? But my views on YouTube didn't really increase that much. So I was like, something, I've been posted somewhere, but I don't know what or who or why. Something's going on. And yeah, that's kind of where it all started. And my video went viral in Japan.
That is crazy. And you were what, like 13, 14?
Yeah, I was 13 when my video went viral, so it was only a year after starting really. And like the
Wow.
scale of viral has changed a lot since back then. So,
Mm.
I was only getting like it it was maybe like 10, 20, 30,000 views, and it was like, but it was big. It was on the number one ranking of like the
Yeah.
videos that day. So like the scales of the internet have really changed since then. And
So you went
yeah.
viral in Japan. Like what was next? Like what happened? Like did your life change?
Yeah, I mean, this is the point where like my life really forked off into two paths. Whereas like before, I was on a certain trajectory somewhere, I don't know where, but since my video went viral, it's gone this different path that I'm living on right now. So I always wonder like what's happening on that other timeline
In a
where my
parallel
video, I
universe.
didn't do my, yeah, it always keeps me up wondering. But yeah, I mean, after my video went viral, so my parents like knew what I was doing, but they were not. I don't think they were really prepared for this next step, which was um, companies basically saying, Beckii, will you travel to Japan and perform and do all this kind of stuff and, meet your fans in Japan and kind of have like a little bit of a career over there. So they were like, we'd never really even been to. I'm from the Isle of Man, by the way, which is like a really small
Mm.
offshore island. It's only got about 80,000 people living there. By this point, I'd never even been to London or a main city, let alone, Tokyo in Japan.
Mm.
So they were like, okay, fine, let's do this. And my parents' ethos was always, we don't want you to wake up in like 20, 30 years and be resentful or feel regret for not being able to pursue an opportunity, because
Mm.
opportunities like that only come once in a lifetime, so
Well,
they
yeah.
were really supportive and assisted me to pursue those opportunities in a
Mm.
safe way.
So these brands would basically like fly you out to Japan to do what? Like to meet fans, to dance, like what to do what?
Yeah, all of it really. In Japan, they have a really different culture with pop stars. It's called like idol culture, and idols do all sorts of different activities there, which is in a little bit of a different way to how it is in the UK. But the fundamentals are kind of still there in terms of it's like make music, perform, dance, model, go on TV shows and like talk shows, that kind of thing. And yeah, like do like various like talent slash idol
Mm.
activities in Japan. So it was a huge culture shock. It was really
Yeah.
amazing. I still, when I was there for the first time, I was like, this really feels like a dream. Like, I don't know what I've done to like land myself here.
Yeah.
But I'm going along with the ride, it's really cool.
Their culture's so different, especially like you being from the Isle of Man, which is so sort of it's tiny, right? What was the sort of like craziest thing you experienced while you were there?
I mean, it was possibly the very first time I went to Japan. So, as I said, I'd never been to a city before. So we, got to London, stayed overnight, got the flight to Japan, and I was told that when I would land, we have to go straight to this arena in Japan, and I was going to be part of this like group of dancers on stage who were going to perform the encore dance at this event called Annie Mellow Summer Live in 2009. And this was to an audience of 25,000 people. And they gave me the dance to learn on the flight over. So I was sitting in this flight like, oh my God, what the heck is going on? That's, for me, in terms of scale, I was like, that's maybe two-thirds or like, a third of the population of my whole country that I'm from.
Yeah.
And I'm going to, be performing on a stage like that. So yeah, that was maybe the craziest kind of experience that I had going over there.
Wow. That is absolutely crazy. And then so after that whole experience that spanned like how many years was that sort of like it was obviously like an ongoing thing, like going back and forth between Japan and the UK. So what was the sort of like how many years was that?
It felt like a lifetime, but really it was only like a year or two, to be
Mm.
honest. Pop culture moves on so quickly, and ultimately,
Yeah.
like I'm not fluent in Japanese, so in terms of how, and I wasn't really prepared to move over, like move my whole family over there and live there. So in terms of how much can you do in Japan in your school holidays when you don't speak fluent Japanese, is like maybe a year or two's worth of of
Yeah,
activity,
yeah.
and then yeah, you kind of go from there.
Hmm. So what was sort of like next for you? Like, so you were going back and forth from Japan, and then that sort of to like dry up, and then were you still kind of making YouTube videos, or did you decide? Because you must have been what, like 16 at this point, something around that. 17?
Yeah. So I continued making YouTube videos all the way through this. I continued, making my dance videos and talking a little bit about what I was getting up to in Japan. I had a documentary on BBC Three in 2010, which kind of reported my story, and that's how a lot of, even today, my UK followers know me. So yeah, I continued making YouTube videos, but I was feeling, to be honest, and this is like the start of like feeling pressures from the internet, but I was feeling an awful lot of pressure because, whilst I was making dance videos, I was never a professional dancer. It was very much a hobby and very much a bit of fun that just ended up, capturing people's eye and giving me a little bit of a career in Japan. But it was not really on. And this is what I always say is like, it doesn't matter how good you are, you have to have that certain amount of luck as well, and that's gonna
Yeah.
make or break your journey. And I had an awful lot of luck with what I did. So I was feeling a lot of pressure from like negative comments and people being kind of mean to me on the internet, and I decided to let's change it up. I didn't really feel like I wanted to post my dances anymore because I just felt like the pressure was so much. So
Yeah.
instead I was like, what, I'm just going to post any old videos that I kind of want to make. And so I started creating mainly fashion and lifestyle content because whilst I was in Japan, I really fell in love with the fashion culture that they had over there, and I wanted to share a little bit more with that with the West. So yeah, I
I think
carried
that's really
on.
cool. You did something that you genuinely wanted to do rather than like listen to like everyone else. If you don't mind, like obviously you can like edit it out if you don't want to, but like what you were so young when you were like so big on YouTube, and obviously these negative comments were coming in. Like, how did it affect you? That must have been really like difficult growing up with all of that.
It was really difficult, and to be honest, it kind of came from two directions. So I was getting bullied in my school about my YouTube because, for the most part, they didn't know about it. But then when like the UK stuff started to happen and the BBC documentary, everyone always used to say like, "Oh my God, I bet everybody must want to be your friend." And I was like, it's really the opposite.
Mm,
So I was dealing with that in real life, and then online. I mean, just it really doesn't matter how big your content is online, you'll still experience negativity from the back of it. I was really lucky because it was, for the most part, one negative comment for every 100 or every 1,000 really kind, positive, encouraging ones.
mm,
But I think if you've been through it yourself, you'll probably understand, but it's the negative ones that really stick out to you the most and keep you up at night mulling over it, because
mm.
you really feel like it's that conflict with who you think you are and like what you think about yourself. And to overcome that, it took an awful lot of time. I mean, whilst I was that young, my first thought was they're wrong about me. I really want to reach out to them and change their mind. And as I've kind of as I grew up, I decided to take a different approach, which was, instead of putting all this energy into trying to convince people who are never going to like me to like me, I'll instead put that energy into building better relationships with the people who are already expressing support for me,
Mm.
and redirecting my energy in that way really kind of helped me move forward through that period.
I think that's amazing, and I think like you took a situation where like obviously it could really hurt people for like a long time, and it can really like have a lot of scars to a situation where you become like stronger, I guess, from the back of it, hopefully. And I'd love to move on to, I guess, like what you're doing now. So after the YouTube stuff like finished, after you're making like these fashion videos and stuff, like it must have wrapped up like fairly soon after that, and then you decided to move on to onto something else.
Yeah, well, to be honest, it was kind of like I was really at a crossroads of what to do with my life, because, and I don't like to say this that much because I don't really think it's the case, and I've had a lot of encouraging stuff happen since then. But when I was around 17 years old, I really felt like my life had already peaked. I was like, this is getting famous in Japan and having all of this success when you're so young. It's like this is everybody's dream.
Yeah.
Come true. Like how better can it get than this? And so I was really feeling a little bit lost, and I was like, I don't really know what to do with my life. You know, is it going to get any better? Like, what's next for me? But that was a silly thought, because how you measure success is very different, especially as you grow up. And I feel a lot more at peace with myself, and more successful now than I did back then. So, you know, there's a journey there in itself, I think. But I was, you know, I was continuing making my YouTube videos, and I really felt like it was time for a change. I didn't go to university. I just didn't really feel like there was anything I particularly wanted to study that badly at that time. And I didn't really like the feeling that at school we were really getting pushed into, okay, get out of our system, you know, finish your A-levels. That's like our problem. Okay, now you're going to be somebody else's problem at a university. And then it's like, okay, you're just prolonging the inevitable, which is like, you're going to enter into the big wide world, and what you're going to do then. So I wasn't really sure what to do. I carried on my YouTube for a little bit, and I started a few various businesses whilst I was doing my YouTube. I started a little fashion brand. I did Patreon for a while, where I made some subscription boxes. And I also like played around with the idea of starting like a magazine as well. And I was doing all of that, but ultimately I was like, I think I need a change of environment. Whilst I didn't want to go to uni and move away for that, I did want to move away. And so I kind of took a plunge and moved to London. And I didn't really have like a plan. I was just kind of like, I've got to figure something out. You know, I was making a bit of money from my YouTube, but it wasn't really enough to support me massively. But I did have some savings from my brand deals and you know, my work in Japan and on YouTube. So I thought, I've got a little bit of time to figure this out. And really fortunately, I kind of fell into a good position. One of the brands that I'd been working with as a sponsor on my YouTube videos was an agency, and I really had a very good rapport with them, a really good relationship. And they were kind of the mindset that they wanted to hire a creator to be part of their team and teach them things that they didn't know about the creator world. And that sounded perfect to me. It was going to be part-time. I would get to learn a lot more about the other side of the experience of being an influencer. You know, I knew all about being sponsored, but I didn't know how to sponsor somebody else. So when I moved to London, I could start that job pretty much straight away. And that was my beginnings into the influence marketing industry.
That's really, really interesting. So you worked for this agency, and like at that time, influencer marketing was still a very new thing, right? Like, so you entered the market at literally the cusp of like it just started. So how was that kind of experience, and how did that kind of lead you to starting your own one?
It was so eye-opening. So this was late 2016, and I started an influencer tech startup business. And it was really eye-opening, because so many things that I thought were common sense about working with influencers and what influencers think about this were absolutely brand new information to the wider industry. And it really got me, you know, it surprised me, but it also gave me a lot of understanding. And likewise, so many things that the brand side and agency side thought everybody must know
Yeah,
this,
yeah, yeah.
was brand new information to me. I remember I've spent my first few weeks just writing down with a pen and paper all these acronyms that they were saying, and after every meeting I was like going away and Googling them. I was like, what is this? And it turns out it was like an acronym for a tennis match or something. I was like, okay, now I know. But yeah, I started this influencer tech agency, and I worked there for about 3 years, and eventually it actually went under, went bankrupt and was liquidated, and everybody who worked there very suddenly lost their jobs, myself included. And it was kind of a surprise, but also kind of wasn't, because we had seen a lot of issues kind of starting to bubble up with the business. And so whilst we were all trying our best to do our jobs, we also were kind of, you know, uncertain about when is this thing going to launch? How is it going to be successful? And you know, everything that comes in with that. So when we were made redundant, it was difficult, but it was also like, I don't really know how there was going to be any other conclusion to the way in which it was being ran. And it was a difficult time. You know, it was quite scary. Myself and my colleagues were all like, what do we do now? You know, we're all fighting for the same, like, 3 jobs in the space. And eventually myself and my 2 co-founders, Joe and Alice, so when you get made redundant, you get like a little bit of buffer pay from the government in terms of, like, you know, days of holiday that you hadn't used up
Yeah,
yet
yeah.
for the year. So we had a tiny bit of money to get us started, basically, of a runway to actually decide, you know what, we believe in the work that we were doing, and in the way which we were running our specific department. Can we make this work for ourselves, but have, you know, true control of what we're doing, our message, our beliefs, our ethos, and how we want to work in the space? And we thought, okay, you tell me if you get a job offer, I'll tell you if I get a job offer, and then let's go for it. And 2.5 years later, here we still are as Pepper Studio, really believing in running influencer campaigns with, you know, humans at their heart. So that's kind of the turbulent story of how we got started.
So let's talk about that quickly before we move on to actually like a lot like practical advice for helping like other young entrepreneurs when it comes to getting their brand out there when it comes to influencers. And like when it came to starting this like influencer marketing agency, which you now have, it must have been really tough. Like the first client is probably the toughest client, right? Like trying to sell them your credibility and everything that comes with that. How was that journey of firstly starting it and then also landing that first client?
I mean, in terms of like starting the business itself, I'd already had a little bit of business experience from like my small ventures when I was younger. You know, I took some business classes that the Isle of Man government put on when I was around like 17, and I started my little fashion business. So I kind of understood the basics of it a little bit more than my co-founders. So I was like, and I'm also a bit more technologically minded than them as well. Whereas I feel like they're such superstars in like, you know, the human connections and really growing those client relationships. Whereas I'm a little bit more tech sided, I guess, because, you know, I've made my own YouTube videos and everything. I feel like I'm a good learner at getting to grips with it. So I was able to like, you know, set up the website, set us up as a company, get our emails started. And then we basically just kind of built on all of those relationships that we'd ever made throughout the industry. I don't know about you, but I always really love getting an email from somebody where they email their whole contact list and say like, I've now left this company, but I'm working for this one now. And I was like, oh, I get to send one of those now. So I emailed everybody that I'd ever met, told them, you know, what we're doing, what we're starting, and where you can reach us. And we kind of started from there. You know, at that time we were taking on really tiny campaigns just to kind of prove a point of, you know, hey, we can do this for a small amount of money. And influence marketing is so scalable and adaptable to suit any client's needs that it's, as long as you can build that faith on how a campaign can be successful, then really it's exponential. So by this point, we're really fortunate to say that the majority of our clients are on repeat business, many of them from, you know, those very first few weeks starting Pepper Studio.
That's
So
crazy.
yeah, it's been a ride for sure.
How long has it been going now?
It's been going since March 2019. So I think that's just over 2.5. It'll be 3 years in next March, 2022. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such an exploding space. And I know I personally for Wing have used influencers before in like very, very early stage of the business. Like we used it, I think, once for one influencer. It didn't really pay off for us. We were like, okay, it's probably not going to work. But he didn't use the product in the correct way and stuff like that. And there were a few other problems. So it was probably the wrong influencer more than anything. And we just kind of like, we knew one influencer. We were like, it's worth a shot. But I think a lot of people listening obviously have small businesses or large businesses. I don't know who's listening, but a lot of them are listening might have a business where they are looking at influencers. It's such a booming space at the moment. So I guess like you are very, very well like placed to give some tips around how they can really leverage their marketing spend on influencers. Like what's the best way to target an influencer? What's the best way to like use it to grow sales, traction, like followers, whatever aim they're trying to do?
I mean, I think you say it really well just then. Is the first tip is make sure that you're really narrow with what your call to action is. So many times we get brands saying, okay, but we want to drive sales, but we also want to grow our following, and we also want people to enter this competition. It's like, really pick one, and also pick the one that's going to work best on social. So whether it is, increasing your followers, or if it's, driving competition entries via a social mechanism, then let's focus on that. Or we can help capture, newsletter signups to widen your funnel, various things like that. Influencers can be so useful for so many different things, and rather than focusing on that kind of like direct sales objective, which it is definitely achievable, but you have to be very specific with your objectives, and also really build on that strategy with the influencer as well.
So,
so much of influence marketing is built on trust with your audience, and the audience will believe the influencer, but also you need to build up that trust with your brand and the influencer as well. And often we'll find that our third or fourth partnership is the one that really resonates the best with people. So it can be really tailored to suit your needs as a brand.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So say if the one objective is, say, sales, for instance, and like they want to basically grow sales by using an influencer, basically maximizing any like £1 spent. How would you guys go around like about that?
I think it's really important to vet the influencer really well and make sure that their audience is going to be an audience that resonates well with your target audience. So you can do that in a few different ways. What we usually do is test and learn methodology. So we'll use poll functionalities to partner with influencers and actually use them to do a little bit of market research for us. And we can ask them questions, leaning towards your brand. So we can find out what the jumping off point is with their familiarity with your product or service, to then tailor the messaging to really suit the stage where your audience is up to. So that's something. It is making sure you're reducing your wastage as much as possible, and really honing down on that target audience. And the second would be considering usage rights. So if you're already, and I always would recommend doing influence marketing in tandem with all of your other marketing ventures as well. There's some brands that obviously do amazing with just influencers by themselves, and it can work really, really well. But I think when you're starting up a small business, you want to try a bit of everything. And a clever way that you can link in influencers with the rest of your pursuits is by securing those marketing usage rights. So by asking for permission to use the content that they produce within your Facebook ads, Twitter ads, print imagery in some cases, it can really help use that influencer's authentic content creation style and authentic relationship with their audience to bring a little bit of that flavor into your wider marketing mix and see how they compare. I mean, some of the brands that we do this with have seen a reduce in their CPA from the influencer's own content within their paid marketing spend by 75%. So it can definitely, pay dividends, really.
Yeah, CPA stands for cost per acquisition, in case anyone's wondering.
It does. Sorry, I said
you
about
talk
me
you
writing
talk
down
about
acronyms.
you talk about
Here I
acronyms and
am.
you're saying them now.
The
But
biggest one I
yeah,
had to learn was FMCG. I was like, what on earth is
fast
that?
moving consumer
Fast moving.
goods. Yeah.
Right? Why do we need an acronym for that?
Yeah, stuff like crisps and stuff. Because I used to work for
Yeah.
Pepsi.
Oh, no
That
way.
is that area. Yeah.
It is an FMCG.
Exactly. Yeah, I didn't know about it before either. But anyway, Becky, we're gonna have to finish it off there. It was such a pleasure talking with you on this episode. I loved having you on. How can people stay in touch with you and Pepper going into the future?
So please do get in touch if you have any question, great or small, about influence marketing. I'd love to chat and help give you some tips and help you avoid any mistakes, because I know that it's sometimes learning is the best way to get through it. But please do send over an email to hello@pepper.studio, Pepper like PEPPER and then .studio, and our website is the same, pepper.studio. We're on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. Please connect with us, and yeah, let's stay in touch.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, Becky. And I'm sure we'll speak soon. Cheers. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.